Okay, so hi guys. So this is specifically for if you're in 6th grade, okay? Um, I believe that, give me one second. Okay, so, I believe this is something that is taught, in 6th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade. You learn this, basically an integer, you learn about adding and subtracting integers. An integer, to be very clear, and let me actually, it is a number, um, so basically the best way that I can explain what an integer is, so an integer, and we're going to start with the definition, it is just a whole number that has no fractions or decimals, or decimal points rather. So for example, I can say that 1 is an integer, 2 is an integer, 3, -4, -1, -6, -7, -21, -216, -4, or we already said -4, but like 25, 5, dot, 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 dot. It goes on. The list can go on forever, right? As long as it's a whole number. Now, in 6th grade, I believe, they teach how to add and subtract integers, right? This is a very important skill for for the future math classes that you take later on when you go to high school, and when you even in 7th and 8th grade. This is something that you relearn again and again, just in a little more, like in a higher difficulty, I would say. So basically, the way that this is taught, so we obviously know how to add. So when they ask you what is 3 plus 6, right? Well, the way that you do that is you would say, well, there's 1, 2, 3, right? And then plus 6, you would say there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And how much would this be altogether, right? Well, you would say, well, this is, for example, if you do it in colors, if you like doing it in colors, you can say 1, 2, 3, that's 3, and then plus, and then 1, 2, 3, and then 6, which 6 would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now when you add them together, you have 1, 2, 3, and then going again, it would be 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, because this is what 6 is, right? And this is what 3 is. So altogether, it would be, this would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. This is what would become of that. So this is 9. And we know how to do those. Those, they're very simple. Similarly, if we so like when we're adding numbers, 216 plus, I don't know, 341. 6 plus 1 is 7. 1 plus 4, you do 1, and then you put 1, 2, 3, 4. So together, it'd be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is 5, and then 2 plus 3 is also 5, because it's 1, 2, and you do 1, 2, 3. This is 5, right? So that all together, this is 557, right? So we know how to do that, or at least we should know how to do that from 5th grade, 4th grade, right? However, in middle school math or 6th grade math, they introduce what is called a negative number. And this is where the number line can really make everything a little easier, hopefully. And I always like to do it with a number line because I feel like that's a little bit easier than having to do it with a chart. I know some people use a chart for these. So let's just say I have negative 4 plus 3. What is that going to be? Right? And you're wondering, like, well, that looks different than what we've been used to. Before we would say, well, like before when you would learn about subtracting and adding numbers, right? You would learn about how basically you would know that if you had 3 minus 4, that's impossible. You can't do that, right? That's what they taught you before when you were maybe in like 4th grade or 5th grade or, you know, things like that. And, but now it is, you know, it's basically now the, they're saying, well, now you can do that. However, I mean, there are rules that emphasize, well, how much, how much, like how to actually add negative with a positive, right? So I am not gonna do like, I'm not gonna include properties on here, even because I feel like that'll make it a lot harder. Instead, we are gonna use a number line, and maybe I'll also use a chart that you may or may have been may or may not have been familiar with in your 6th grade class. But basically, this is the way that we do it. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna start at negative 4, right? So let's actually do let's do a let's actually start with an easier problem. Let's say 4 plus 3, okay? And I believe, and I'm pretty sure about this, that in, like I said, in elementary school, you were probably taught how to, add with a number line, and here was 0. So basically you had, you only had positive numbers, so you would say, well, it was 1, 2, 3, 4, and you would just keep going and going and going, right? So let's say you went 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, right? And the way that they would teach you is, well, you start at 4 right here, and you go 1, 2, so this is 1, 2, 3. So how many units did I go to get to 7? I went 3, right? Or how many or where did I end up with when I went 3 times, or went across 3, right? I ended up at 7. So that's why 4 plus 3 is 7. You can also say, well, I do 1, 2, 3, 4, and I add 3 more. What is that going to be? That's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. This is another way to look at it. If I have 4 positives, and I basically I include 4 other positives, or I'm sorry, 3 positives, excuse me. How many positives in total am I going to have? Well, I'm going to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and it's actually 3, not 4, my bad, 6. So basically, sorry guys, give me 1 second. So basically 6 and then 7, right? And I ended up with 7 positives, so this is 7. And that's how we add numbers. That's how, That's how we did it in the past. However, now we want to go a little bit more, you know, a little bit, you know, deeper and say, well, in the number line, we learned about positives, right? We learned that, you know, because in the real world, you can't have a negative of something. It's like, for example, I have 3 apples. Can I have negative 3 apples? No, right? We learned that negatives in reality don't exist in the real world. That's something that we have to remember, is that negative. So negative quantities, a quantity, and if you don't know what a quantity is, a quantity is a numerical representation of something. So like, for example, I'm going to explain this very quickly. A quantity is when you have, for example, I can say I have 3 apples. What is this? That is a quantity, right? If I say, I don't know, like, I had 3 apples, but 2 of them fell along the way. And I say, now I have 1 apple, right? What is that 1 apple? That is a quantity, right? That is what a quantity is. And what I'm trying to say is that you cannot say negative 3 apples or negative n apples, where n is a number. But we don't have to try not to overthink that. Basically, we can have a negative of something, right? We don't know what that something is. We can't have a negative of something apples, because in the real world, negative quantities do not exist. Okay, that's something that we have to remember. And so basically what's, so for example, that is how, basically that is the meaning of a negative number, and a negative number just means that it has a minus sign. So a negative number, so for example, I write the number negative 41. This, so let's see, hold on. This is what we call, and let me actually color code this, so like negative 41. This is what we call the negative symbol. And 41, if we say 41, that is the whole number, right? So for example, if I said negative 2, this is my negative, and this is the number, right? And so, but now, like, the point of this video is to teach how to add and subtract negative numbers. Now, there is a certain way to do this. the way that I believe they would teach these is by thinking about it as a chart, or kind of like a chart, right? Of a chart of positives and negatives. And let's just say that I have -6 plus 7. Well, I know I have negative of 6. I have 6 negatives. So let me do it this way. Give me 1 second. So, let's see. Hold on. So let's pretend I have something like this, right? I have a t-chart and I want to know what is -6 plus 7, right? And this is new to me because, of course, I always thought, well, it's very strange the way it's written, and I've never seen a negative number in front. I've always seen positives, and I've always seen 7 minus 6 or 5 minus 4, right? So this seems kind of intimidating or daunting or scary, right? We don't know, we're not sure what this is, right? But it's okay because this is something new, and once we figure out how it's done, maybe it's not as bad as we thought it was. So the way that this is done is, what if I say, well, I mean, I know that with integers, with adding integers, I would say, well, I know how to add integers if I have positives, right? So let's just look at 6 plus 7. And I say, okay, well, I can present that, right? If I say positive 6, so basically 6 and then plus and then 7. So hold on. And then plus, and then I say, sorry guys, give me 1 second. And then I say 7. And I'm like, okay, well, to do this, all I have to do really is just, I have 6 positives. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, right? So I say, okay, there's 6 positives, right? And then I also have 7 positives because it's adding 7. It's giving me 7. It's like if I say, well, I have 6 apples and they give me 7 more and on the basket. And I say, well, how many apples are on the basket now? I go ahead and say, well, I say, well, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So when I add all of these together, what is this going to be, right? Say, well, that's 1, 2, 3, 4. I say 1, 2, 3. So this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, right? And I say, okay, well, that's 13, but what about -6 plus 7? I really, the thing about this one is it's a little weird because we have 6 negatives, so we're going to say, well, the way that you're going to do this really is you're going to say, well, there's 6 negatives. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, right? And then there's 7 positives. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So basically, doing all of this, what I want you to think about is every time I cross out a positive, I will also cross out a negative. So this crosses out. So then this will cross out, right? This crosses out, so then this will cross out. This crosses out, so then this will cross out. And you keep going until you have no more positives or negatives, right? So basically every time you cross something out, it has to cross, like every positive has to cross out with a negative, right? But now you see that, so I say, okay, well, I can't cross out a positive anymore because there is no other negative here. There is a negative, yes, I can, but now I'm left with these. What do I do with these two? Well, in reality, that is what is left over. So in reality, -6 plus 7, it left me with two positives. So that's really just positive, or I'm sorry, it was, so let's see, hold on. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3. Like this. And then it left me with 1, actually. My bad. I'm sorry, guys. So like this. So basically, you're gonna do this, basically. So you're gonna have. So you have 6 positives, right? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Or I'm sorry, 7 positives, excuse me. 7, and then you have 6 negatives. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now you're gonna cross 1. So basically write this down. Every positive crosses out a negative. We need to keep this equal, right? So we're gonna have 1, 1, 2, 2, 3, 3, 4, 4, 5, 5, 6, 6. And you see how there's 1 positive left. We can't cross this out because this is what's left over. So what is my answer? Because it's a positive of, it's positive 1, my answer is going to be 1. Okay? This is how you would do it. Give me 1 second, everybody. Okay, so let's look at this example, right? This one says, and this one says, there's, so we have -5 plus 3, right? And we say, okay, how many negatives do we have? Well, here's a -5, so we have 5 negatives, right? Because think of this as a whole term here, okay? And how many positives do we have? Well, it's very clear we're adding 3, so that means we have 3 positives. These are 3 positives here. So, basically, the way that I really want everybody to think about this is I want you to say, if you have 5 negatives, you have -1, -2, -3, -4, -5, right? Plus, and then you're gonna do, this is really just what -5 is. All of this, right? All of this. 3 is really just plus 3. It's positive 3. 3 is the same as positive 3, right? So if we say plus, and then we just have a 3 here, we have 1, 2, 3, right? Now, let's go ahead and highlight that, right? This is what 3 is. This is 3 right here. So look at, basically, look at this, and then also look at this. That's what I'm saying here. Now, doing the t-chart, let's put our negatives. We have 5 negatives, so we put them right here, and then 3 positives. We're gonna go 1, 2, 3, right? And then And what is that going to give me? If I do that, what is that going to give me? So let's go ahead and cross them out. We have one negative, so I'm going to cross out a positive, and then one negative here, another positive here, one negative here, another positive here. And I've crossed out all my, as much as I could. Now I have no more positives. So basically I have only two negatives. I have -2 and I have a 0. So what is -2 plus 0? Well, anything plus 0 is just that thing, right? Any number, if I say, for example, 5 plus 0, that is 5. Think of 0 as nothing. Okay, so that's just going to be -2. Okay, and that's how you do it. And it's very helpful when we visualize it with a t-chart, because if you don't understand how to do these, I mean, later on it's going to be more tricky. So for example, let's look at -5 minus 7, right? Now there is a rule, okay, and I really want us to pay attention to this. Anytime, so for example, there are 3 rules, and this is something that you learn in pre-algebra, okay? This is something that we should kind of try to understand in terms of pre-algebra. So give me 1 second. So here's the thing. There is a rule, and I'm gonna go ahead and write it like this, okay? It is so basically let's pretend we have a number A, and then we have another number that's B, okay? These are just numbers. They're not, they can either be positive or negative, okay? Now, there's a rule where, for example, A plus B, we all know that that's just A plus B, okay? Now, if let's say we do A minus B, there's a rule that's called, and I believe that maybe, this is maybe something that you are familiar with. This is really just A. You're gonna keep the first, basically A minus B. You're gonna keep the A. You're gonna change this into a positive, right? And what is the opposite of B? Well, we know that the opposite of a positive number is a negative number, right? That is something that we must understand, is that the opposite of a positive is a negative. So it's going to be -B. So we have, this is going to be A plus -B. What about -A, or actually, what about -A minus B? This is really, you're going to keep the first one, so let's go ahead and do a chart for this, right? We have -A, so -A, and then plus, and then we're going to do the opposite of B, right? Because really this is just, it's going to be -A, and then we have the minus sign, and we have B. Well, what is the opposite of B? I said basically it is -B. So that means we're going to have, this is going to be, we're going to keep the first one, so -A, and then so -A minus B, right? We're going to say -A, and then we're going to turn it to a positive, so we're going to change it to a positive, and then do the opposite of B. Now, what did we say the opposite of B was? the opposite of b is negative b. So we have negative b. So really, negative a minus b is really negative a plus negative b. And you can put parentheses so that you can denote that these are negative numbers, okay? Now, anytime that, for example, if I have negative 2 minus negative 1, okay? What is this going to be? Well, I keep my 2, so we're going to keep it. You always keep the first number, so this is negative 2. You're going to change this into a positive, and you're going to do the opposite of this one, which is a positive 1. So what is this going to be? Negative 2 plus 1. And what is negative 2 plus 1? Well, if you do a chart, you have your plus symbol and your minus symbol. We only have one positive, so we have like this. And we have two negatives. So that means that when we cross out, we're going to be left with a negative. So that's going to be negative 1. So really, negative 2 plus 1 is just negative 1. And that is your answer. And that is how you subtract these numbers, right? That's really just how it works. And so that's basically what this all means. Now, if we use a number line, let's say I have a number line, right? And let me go ahead and just draw it really quick. So let's pretend I have something like this, right? Negative 1 minus 4, okay? What am I going to do? I'm going to start at negative 1. So whatever's in front first, whatever you start with, whatever's at the very left of your addition or subtraction, so basically whatever's on the very left, this one, we're going to start with. So we're going to plot that right here, right? And then it's saying that we're subtracting 4. So what does that mean? That means that anytime, it's like if I said, that's literally like if for example, whenever we did 5 minus 3, right? And then we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I go and I subtract 3, right? 1, 2, 3. This is negative 3 units. Like, literally all of this is negative 3 units. So, like this, hold on. And I know it's kind of hard to read. Give me 1 second, guys. So I start here, right? This is, give me 1 second, guys. So I start at 5, and I go to the left 3. 1, 2, 3. This is negative 3 units, right? What about with negative 1? That means that if I subtract 4, I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4. This is 1, this is 2, this is 3, this is 4. So where am I ending up at? I'm ending up at negative 5. So that means that this is really just negative 5. Okay. Now let's say I do the t-chart. Or let's say I do the keep it, change it opposite rule, right? Negative 1 minus 4. This is really negative 1 plus, and then I do the opposite of 4. What is the opposite of 4? It's negative 4. And so remember that a positive, a negative plus a negative equals a negative. I'm also trying to think, so, and then a positive plus a positive equals a positive. The only reason why I don't do a positive plus a negative is because it really depends on how big the positive or the negative number is, okay? So anytime, so for example, if you look at a so let's say you look at something like this, right? You cannot take 4 away from 3. And you're thinking, well, I can do 4 minus 3, right? And that's 1, but because we have positives and negatives, we have 1, 2, 3 positives, and we have 4 negatives. And you're just gonna cross out a positive for a negative. Think of it like if you're on a field trip and everybody has to have a buddy, right? Everyone has to have like a buddy for the day, right? But there's one left behind. And what is that going to be? Is it going to be a negative or is that going to be a positive? And basically, this is really just -1. Now, let's say I do have a like -3 minus 4, and I have no negatives, but I mean I have no positives, but I have a bunch of negatives, right? So so basically the way that I would do this really is like this. I have 1, 2, 3 negatives, right? And I also have other negatives here. 1, 2, 3, 4. So this is 3 negatives, and these are 4 other negatives, right? So what is this? This is going to be, I'm just going to count them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So I have 7 negatives. So that my answer for this is going to really be -7, right? It really depends on which one you find easier. Do you want to, do you find this easier? Do you find the number line to be easier? Do you find the t-chart to be easier, right? Those are 3 ways in which we can add and subtract integers. Now, they get a lot tougher once you have, like, numbers where you have -214 plus 100. And you're like, whoa. Well, in reality, you can say that this is going to be equal to a 3-digit number. But these 3 digits are... So, you can think of it like this. 1, 1, 1 here, and then... the way that... So basically the way that you would do something like this is if you do 200... Or let's say they give you like, I don't know, 100 minus 516, right? And you're like, whoa, how do I do that? You're gonna do 100 plus -516. Now, I know that for this you can't really do a t-chart. However, you can say that. So this is why in in algebra they teach you about the distributive property and stuff. The way that you can look at this is, so if I have for example, let's say I have -200, and then I have like, I don't know, -492, right? And I want to know what this is. Or let's say I have plus, right? Let's say I have a plus. I have a plus, right? Well, I know, like, basically, what are my positives, right? What are my positives here? Well, there is a plus 492. And what are my negatives? This is really -200. So what is this really? Well, if I bring it together, I say, well, 492, and then I have a minus 200. So now it's not that bad anymore, because now I have it in this form. So my point here is, there is something called the commutative property and the associative property. And I do not know if this is something that they teach in 6th grade. But whenever you have a number, so really, if you have a, for example, if you have negative a minus negative b, or really negative a minus b, this is really just negative the quantity a plus b, and this is distributive property. But I do not know if that's something that we must not overthink it just yet. In reality, the way that we add and subtract numbers is with t-charts, and that is if you don't know how to add and subtract positives with negatives. So with that being said, I really hope this helps. If anybody has any questions about this, let me know. Thank you so much for watching, and I really hope this helps. Please like, comment, and or subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye guys.